Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and today I want to talk about the relics of 33 Immortals and kind of give you a little bit of a tier list here. I've had a lot of people ask me like what I think about the different relics and which ones I think are good, which ones are bad, and so we've made our own little tier list maker thing here. And this is pretty much just going to be, we're going to go through and assign things based on how good they are generally. There are some builds where some relics are way better. Like for example, I'm going to rate the ones that are heavy attack oriented a little bit lower because heavy attack is pretty bad. But if you are playing like a staff build that's using the heavy attack upgrade, it's going to obviously be a lot better than the light attack ones. But we're just going to kind of go through it. Now, starting off right away in S tier, I think Lover's Skull is just probably the best relic that you can see that just gives you damage. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that gives you some nice quality of life, defenses, a whole bunch of other things. But Lover's Skull is just amazing. And its damage is non-conditional at all. You just get more damage. This is very useful because a lot of the times when you need damage the most, especially like on the Adam and Eve fight, when you're like solo trying to kill an ad as it's kind of like coming in to the fight during the mechanic, you're just by yourself. And so you don't have co-strike bonuses. You don't have like 10 people standing around you killing something. You're like desperately trying to kill stuff with maybe one or two other people. And Lover's Skull just gives you that 40% damage boost, which is pretty insane. Next up, the Stained Burial Shroud, I think is conversely one of the worst ones here. This makes it so that you can only take 15 damage at most from any instance. And that's just planning for failure, basically. If you have this on, you probably should just re-roll it into almost any of the other epic options here. It's going to give you and your team a little bit more juice, which I think is pretty good. Yachting Maul of Truth here, I think is really amazing. This is definitely a top tier item. What this does is it makes it so that any debuffs that you can apply from the other relics that you have, including stun, for example, just apply a lot quicker. If you don't know, debuffs basically don't just go on automatically. They kind of like build up in the meter. And the Yachting Maul of Truth makes that meter go up a lot against bosses. And so against like single normal targets, you'll see like stun popping off like crazy. You'll see like you're weakened, you're exposed, mark and all that kind of stuff go off real quick. And like weakened makes them do less damage. Mark seems to like either make you crit more or make your co-strikes do more damage. It's not 100% clear yet. And exposed just makes them take more damage, period. And so being able to proc that a lot more frequently is good. Mummified Heart here, I put in B tier. This does give you a tremendous amount of damage, way more than Lover's Skull. It's like 125% of damage when you're very low life. The problem is getting low life and staying low life. A lot of the best relics like will give us things like heals. You get heals from other players. And so having to like get to a situation where it's like, oh no, I am no longer qualifying for Mummified Heart anymore. I have to like intentionally whittle my health down for damage is pretty scary. And like swords right now are not very powerful, so it's not really guaranteed that you're going to get a shield. And even if somebody does put down the shield, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get it because other people in your group could take it. So I don't think that Mummified Heart is very good. The Preserved Heretic Head is insane. This makes it so when you co-strike, you pretty much have a 33% chance to shoot out a whole bunch of missiles that do extra damage. And it's basically like 33% more damage here. And it's pretty nice. And I think that can proc more co-strike stuff. And getting more co-strike is great. Next up, the Melted Bishop Ring. I think this could potentially go up in S tier. I'm put it into A tier here, mostly because this does give us 8% damage per player around us. So with 5 players near us, it's like a Lover's Skull. And then above that, you're going to basically be going up and up. But right now, I haven't even made it to an Adam and Eve where we have more than 12 people still alive. And typically by the time the stuff's hitting the fan, you might have like less than 5 people, other people alive. You can't guarantee they're going to be standing near you. So it is pretty conditional. If you're fighting Lucifer, this is probably the best relic, just because you're going to have like 30 people alive. You're going to max out the thing. You're doing so much damage, but on the harder content, it's not going to be as good. Next up, Desecrated Paten. It's kind of similar here to Stained Burial Shroud in that it is, kind of damage reduction, which is kind of generically bad. However, this does work for you and your entire team, which really does kind of bring it up. 20% less damage. Still, they have to be around you And very frequently when you are getting hit for big damage, you're like kind of separated from the group. You're not like all getting hit. Even when like a big like raid wipe style hit comes in, people tend to spread out as opposed to cluster. And so, you know, you're probably not going to have the effect of this. Last epic here is Emerald of Princes, and is probably the worst epic. We'll talk about this one again once we go into the commons here. This one is just so terrible. It makes it so that when you co-strike for like the first time, instead of going to 1, you go to 10. That's pretty much it. It's so bad. Next up, we have the Cocytus Abiding Ice. This gives us 25% more damage. This goes in A tier, pretty nice. Sacrosanct Vertical allows us to apply Exposed, which can kind of be like the make or break for killing some bosses. Gives us the team a huge damage boost. It's like a lover's skull for the team, which is very, very nice. Unfortunately, it's not up 100% of the time, so that's the thing. The Blessed Chains here basically boosts your light attack damage while nerfing down any heavy damage types. And so the light attacks do count things like your arrows coming back to you, or just left clicks. Things like your leap on the daggers do qualify as heavy attack damage. So this will nerf that for those particular builds. But, you know, a lot of people are spamming left click right now, so this is very solid. Likewise, the Ultras Jawbone here is the opposite. So make sure light attacks do less, bigger heavy attacks do more. And so if you're playing like a heavy attack focused build, this would be like S tier as opposed to B tier. This could even arguably be C tier right now, or even D tier with how bad heavy attack builds are. I'm just going to put it here in the B tier just to kind of be fair to it. Next up, we have, I'm going to kind of skip ahead here to the Celestial Green Feather, the Burnt Cincture, and the Seraphic tier here. These 3 items give you more stats of other stats depending on which stat you have. So the Burnt Cincture here turns your 50% of your attack, also counts as life, which I think is amazing. The Celestial Green Feather makes 50% of your empathy count as attack, also amazing. Empathy gives us damage, it gives us power stuff. Is really, really nuts. And the Seraphic tier makes it so that your vitality turns into empathy. And realistically, you probably shouldn't be stacking empathy right now. And so or stacking vitality, stacking empathy is good. And so I would say that that's more of a B tier here, but I really enjoy getting all 3 of these. I kind of call it the Ouroboros. And the reason for that is because 50% of your attack goes into life, and then that makes you much more tanky. It feels pretty good. And this kind of like feels like free tankiness as opposed to stacking vitality for this. And so that 50% goes into this, and then 50% of that goes over here. So you have like 25% of your attack is going back into your empathy, and then, you know, another half of that is going back in. So it's like 12% more attack if you have all 3. And one of the things I'd really love for them to do is make it so that if you do get certain setups of relics, that they smoosh all together into one legendary relic or something, which I think would be pretty cool. Like if you smash all 3 of these together to be like Ouroboros, and just gives you like, I don't know, 60% more stats or something, would be kind of cool. And also just free up spots for you. Next up, we have the Pious Blindfold here. Just gives us more damage. It's definitely better than the Cocytus Abiding Ice. Helps you kill a lot of elites. A lot of the mechanics that you have to deal with are elites. And so I'd say that this one is pretty darn solid. I really do like having this. It's potentially better than a lot of these other ones. I'm going to leave this here for now. Soiled Purificator is nice. I want to say that this is necessarily the best relic. It does apply that marked debuff, which does give, you know, the team more damage. This is definitely better if you have Yawning Maw of Truth, but, you know, it's not necessarily the best. We have Eagle Talon here. This gives us a little blast while every time you evade, and this is definitely, I think, like A tier before you get to Ascension battles and even at Ascension battles. But then once you get to the boss, this thing gets really, really bad unless you're sword. I think if you're sword and you have the relic here that makes your cooldown shorter for dodge, that actually gives you some options for doing damage. It's actually pretty nice, but I always re-roll this once I get to the boss. It's just not very good. Now, for one of the best blue relics, the Tusk of Ciriato makes you so you gotta do 125% more damage to like a debuff to enemy, which, you know, really makes some of these other ones very, very good to have. And so this is very noticeable when it procs off. You do a lot of damage. I hit like 12,000 hits on takedown with this, and it's just very, very nice. It's not up 100% of the time. It becomes a lot better if you have something like Sacrosanct, or if you have somebody in your team that is doing Yawning Maw. You notice this a lot. Next up, we have the book combo here. The Holy Hymns and Shard Book of the Gospel. These are both pretty okay, and I would actually put them close to the top of B tier here. They give you more damage or more crit damage based on how many people are around you. Once again, though, the times where you need damage the most, you tend to not have people around you. And so these kind of just like win more as opposed to help you out when you need it the most. And then we come to the Muddy Apostle Amulet, or Medal. Muddy Apostle is just super duper goated, especially if you're playing bow. This is going to give you a lot of co-op power. And I mean, like, if you have this and the Bloodstained Stole together, this basically means that, like, especially against Lucifer, sometimes I'll activate my co-op power, and then by the time the co-op power finishes, I can almost cast it again. It's just absolutely insane, the amount of like co-strike power that comes out of this. This is also really just good for pretty much everybody, because your co-op power just give you damage. The daggers get a little bit more damage. The shield from the sword is nice. It's kind of like what people want. Be able to lock down elites with the staff is pretty good. Note that like I see a lot of people pop their staff alt on the boss. It doesn't really do a ton of damage. I don't think it even really slows them, but it will lock down elites. So anytime elites are popping out, like dropping that on them can really save your team a lot of headache. That's kind of like the best use there. And so it's very nice to have that ult coming up a lot for the staff, and they definitely have the ability to proc that a bunch. Next up, I would say the Lamp of Purifying Flames. This might be fighting for like the best blue relic here. This thing just gives you so much like peace of mind, quality of life. You get like, I think it's 1% heal every 5 seconds. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but the difference is like night and day. It's like being in the dark and being in the light here with the lamp. And it's just so, so nice. Also makes like if you have invested in a little bit of life, or you have the burnt cincture, it just makes it really, really cozy. I like to wish for both of these too when I'm doing Purgatorio, just so I can like play a little bit more aggressively and go after some plays. Next up, we have Oxidized Flagon, which applies weak to enemies. I don't think this is all that great, unfortunately. Weak does, help, proc off stuff like Tusk. It does proc Tusk the fastest here. However, besides that, like, that's not super duper good. I mean, it's kind of comparable to Desecrated Pattern, but you kind of have to hit enemies first, which is a little bit annoying. Now, moving into the common relics here, we have the Thorn of the Martyr. Just gives you more damage. That's kind of nice. The Cruel Harpy Feather. We're going to put this in B tier, but like realistically, this could also be like an A tier as well. This just gives us more light damage. Likewise, the Reliquary Hand also gives us heavy damage. They're kind of like the same depending on your build. String of Gibral gives you a little bit of flat damage. I don't think this is really all that impactful, because even like I get up to like 30 attack here, the number isn't super duper insane in terms of like how much more you get. The flat damage is like, I think, a small percentage. It's still nice, but like if I had to choose between this and like Cocytus Ice, or maybe even like having Cruel Harpy Feather is probably going to give me more damage, whereas this is a little bit more generic. I have to do maybe a little bit more math. I could be wrong on this. Barca Erudition is kind of like a mini Pious Blindfold. We're going to put this up here in A tier. And note, like, kind of with the common ones here, like if I had Barca Erudition and I had to like choose between this and Desecrated Pattern, I probably would take Pattern. We're kind of like putting these like the epics in their own tier of A tier, the the rare ones in their own tier, and the commons in their own tier. Just kind of give you an idea of the breakdown for that. Next up, Finger of the Doubtful. I think it's the worst relic. This gives you 200% more damage, but only when they're stunned, which is like no time at all. Maybe if you're running a stun build, this could be OP, but otherwise, yeah, no. Cleric Silas here, I think, is insane. And realistically, Emerald of Princes and Cleric whatever The CC here should have their effects probably swapped. This makes it so that you always have 10% chance to crit baseline, and this one makes it so that after 2 hits you have 10% chance to crit. And then you scale up so much faster. If you hit 2 times with this, you're up to 20% chance to crit. If you are 4 times with this, you're up to 20% chance to crit. If you hit 4 times with Emerald of Princes, you're at 13% chance to crit. Make it make sense. So this one's really insane. And likewise, Cracked Rosary Beads is really cracked. This a lot of times you see people on the leaderboards, they get up to 999. That's co-op strike or co-strikes. They probably have Cracked Rosary Beads because it's very difficult to keep the co-strike going. This gives you like 3 more seconds of time just kind of get like up there. So this helps you kind of like get more Stardust and just stay at 100% chance to crit. Now, if I had to choose between Cracked Rosary or Cleric Cecilo, there's kind of like a toss up depending on which weapon I'm playing. I really do like Cracked Rosary Beads a lot. Just kind of like makes the game a little bit more fun, which is something that not very many other relics do. We have Burning Femur. This makes it so that you do more damage based on the number of enemies or number of allies around you, which is not super duper consistent. So I'm gonna put that in C tier. The Bloodstained Stole makes it so you get 100% more co-op power. I don't understand why this is a common relic at all. It is absolutely cracked and insane. If you're playing bow and you wish for Bloodstained and Muddy Apostle, absolutely nuts. Just really, really powerful. Likewise, Durative Vodi Candle I think is very good as well. This gives you kind of a more multiplier to your co-op power. So more shield, more arrows fired from your arrow volley, a longer, bone generation period, a longer period of super slow from the staff. And this helps for other people's co-op powers as well. And so it's just like a multiplier on your empathy, which is very nice. Next up, we have the Rope of Treachery. This makes allies around you do 4% more damage, which is pretty nice. Not super duper game breaking. The Congealed Blood of Saints makes it so that you and allies around you take less damage. Yeah, but like I'd rather have damage instead. The Worn Scapular here makes it so you can dodge faster. If they hadn't buffed dodge to be what it is right now, they basically cut down the cooldown in half. Then this would actually be a lot better. But I don't think that this is really something that is like needed really at any point, unless you're playing Eagle Talon. Like I really like on sword, going Eagle Talon, Worn Scapular against Lucifer and just dodging into his face between every swing. And I do like double the damage because of this. So these two become a 100% more damage combo for sword in that case. But yeah. Braid of Dis, I think, is just slightly better than Congealed Blood of Saints. If you're like a newer player or you're like doing stuff you're not very comfortable with or playing a weapon you're not very comfortable with, this does become better because it's like a more multiplier for your life. And then lastly, the Fruit of the Insatiable. I don't think is really all that great. This just gives you kind of more life when you have life. So it's kind of like a defense more. So it's kind of like a defense more type of relic there, where you get more life while you've already invested in life. And yeah, I don't think that that's super duper good. It also doesn't like scale the Ouroboros combo here of like giving you more empathy and then more attack or anything. And really only kind of works with Lamp of Purifying Flame or I guess DR from like Braid of Dis. And so yeah, this is kind of like my tier list. You definitely don't have to like follow this 100%. You have to kind of like use your brain a little bit about what you need for the game. But this is kind of like how I evaluate the different relics. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll put a link to this as well so you can go look at it. And we'll see you again soon. Come by the stream. Later.